Hello again and welcome to The Luxury Choice, a B2B technical sales and business podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm a senior sales trainer at George James and I'm also the host and producer of this podcast. Once again, I'm joined by my two colleagues, Pru and Jonathan Cooper. Pru, Jonathan, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, well, after after Monday's attempt to record this, when the volume failed, well, the recording or the audio failed.
Yeah, we did have a technical glitch.
yeah.
This is take two.
Yes.
We didn't need to tell the listener that, Jonathan, but we will do it anyway.
I've got nothing. Normally you see you ask this on a Monday morning after my weekend, and I've got something interesting to tell people. But I haven't this week. Week at all.
No, we should say this is Wednesday afternoon, so the sun has come out here in Oxfordshire. How has your week been so far, Pru?
So, as you know, we had a really exciting week this week, Steve, because we actually met up yesterday, which is quite unusual for us. So,
face to face.
Yes, Steve, Jane, and I all met in Birmingham yesterday. So that was excellent. Really nice to meet my colleagues. So I think that's been the highlight of my week.
Always a pleasure to see you face to face, Pru. And we were working on our latest round of what we're calling our scheduled training courses, but more of that on our website. So check out our training courses, of course, on the website. But that's not an advert. This is a podcast. So so we've been doing this now for a year, guys. Amazingly, it's incredible how the times move on, really. Yeah. So what I thought we'd do today, now what we've been doing over the last 12 months really is looking at all aspects of the sales process, looking at various things that we need to do when we're working through the sales process. We have the guests as well, of course, that I interview from time to time. But for this sort of anniversary show, for want of a better term, really, what I'd like to do really is look at some practical aspects of using the sort of the knowledge and training that we've gone through, really. And for many people, not all, but for many people, it's kind of half year, pretty much. We're coming into the holiday season now, but if we have a calendar year, this is like our halfway through the year approximately. So what I thought we'd talk about today, guys, is what do we do if we're a salesperson and we're behind target? In other words, where we should be year to date. What are the things we need to think about there, and how do we sort of correct things before it's too late, I guess, really, is the topic for today, really. Now, I've been behind targets loads of times in my career.
Me too.
I'm sure you guys have as well. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll talk about, the different types of businesses, capital equipment, and whether it's consumables and all those things. But first off, at the really sort of top level, Pru, what do you think we need to do immediately if we are sitting here half year behind target? What are the things we need to think about?
Well, where to start? I guess panic, don't panic. Probably.
Yeah, good advice.
Probably a bit of both. Probably don't panic, because when you panic, we sometimes do some knee-jerk things which are rarely the right thing to do. So I think that don't panic and really try and evaluate why you think where you are. If it's a surprise, then probably you should panic, because most of us should probably work out whether we are or are not going to be on track as we manage our business. But I think that the first thing I do is really hold a mirror up and try to think about what I've been doing. Am I happy with what I've been doing? Has there been this little niggle that there are things that I should have been doing that I shouldn't? So no surprise.
Yeah, great point.
So I think there's a bit of self-reflection about why you are where you are and if you're expected to be there. I think to balance that, one of the things that I see quite often, and probably, for sure I've done it, is that when I have been behind plan, I may start off blaming other people or other things, or either people in my own organisation, or that we haven't got
market or the competition, I guess. Yeah,
we haven't got the best product. That product launch was late. When are they ever on time? If only I'd had that, I'd be fine by now. So I think that once you sort of got over that, it's then to think about, do I recognise why I'm here? And then start to think about what you're going to do. I always know when I've felt under a bit of pressure or things are not going well, it's best to have some things I can action and get going with, because if I'm working towards improvement, I instantly feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
So in other words, not being in denial, recognizing where we are and coming up with some kind of action plan to move forward, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a couple of things Pru has said that, I'd love to go back to. I think this blaming something else, to me is, is well, what does it actually do? It actually stops you putting your energy and thinking about, what you can do to put things right. It stops you finding solutions. And I think it's really easy. It's really easy to blame the market, because you can just look around and you could say, well, our competitors are struggling as well. But it's never quite, a market is never quite that sort of black and white. There's lots of shades of grey. And sometimes, if we do blame others, as I say, we stop looking for those opportunities to turn things around. So, I completely agree with that. Whatever it is, I think you name most of the things that we can blame at the end of the day. So that's the first thing. I think the other great comment Pru made was, we are at the half year. The fact you're behind almost certainly, it should not be a surprise. If you've been monitoring looking at your numbers and monitoring your gap from, the very beginning of the year, then, where you are is where you are. And it shouldn't have been a surprise. You may have already, of course, tried to do one or two things to sort of get things back on track. But yeah, absolutely. I think couple of great thoughts there from Pru. But for me, it is that period of reflection, I think, is really important, because there's potentially some genuine some reasons why you're there that relate to you as an individual. Maybe I've lost some orders I shouldn't have lost. Maybe I've lost the edge in terms of the way I've approached the sale. Maybe I've talked to I missed some key decision makers. I didn't talk to some people I should have talked to. Hey, maybe I haven't been prospecting enough. Maybe that's my problem. And how many times do we see that, guys, when we're training and working with people? There's a difference between thinking you're prospecting and actually doing it for real, and that's often
prospecting.
Often a reason at the end of the day. That's why we are where we are. So.
I'm quite pleased with myself, Jonathan, because you made references to Shades of Grey, and I resisted the temptation to do a 50 Shades of Grey joke.
Oh, did you? Oh, good.
Pru, you obviously thought it as well.
I saw you do that, Steve. I thought, I know what he's going to do now.
No, I resisted.
Yeah, well, if any of you know,
in all seriousness,
yeah. It's all right, Stephen. I was just going to tell the listener about the George James channel that we have for the whole team. And every Friday we get some really fantastic corny joke from Steve. So, Steve, thank you for those, because they always make me smile before the weekend. Thank you.
I won't give up the day job, though. So to get back to the topic in that case then. So, some great points. So I think one thing would be, is it because we've just not had a lot of things to sell or, a lot of opportunities? Have we been losing more sales than we normally do? So in other words, if the opportunities are still there, but for whatever reason we're losing more sales, that kind of indicates something's happening in terms of our own sales approach or the competition, I suppose, really, Pru, yeah? Or if we don't have as much stuff on the go, I guess that's another data point, really, in terms of what we do to move forward, yeah?
Yeah, I kind of reflecting, and I think we've all said this, we've probably spent more of our sales life behind plan than ahead of plan. Because, most of your plans that are set should be a bit of a stretch. That's what they're there for. Completely. They're there to kind of drive you. They're a bit of a stretch. They should always be a push. And I think that it would be rarely that I would be behind plan and be surprised. I sort of could see it coming, which is at least something. And there was always a maybe, again, we've referenced this before, maybe there's something I knew I should have been doing, which was on the too hard to do pile. So maybe I ought to go and check my too hard to do pile and go, which of those things do I know I should have been doing and I've sort of been avoiding? Because if I want to make the outlook better, and in sales, we're optimistic, driving to goals and targets, I always want to make it, wherever I am, I want to make it look better. So go check my too hard to do pile and go, what are those things have I been avoiding? Because I probably had a feeling about why I was where I was. I mean, sometimes I suspect it could be a surprise, depending on the business you are in. If you've had a big organization close that's been regularly buying from you, then that may result in why you're suddenly behind plan and you expect it to be ahead. And if that is whatever the case is, I think, do some self-reflection, have a think about how you are going to change it. And then one of the things I would really recommend is then go and talk to your boss about it. Go and talk to your manager about it. They'll also see the numbers, by the way.
They're probably giving them to you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And rather than be on the defense in terms of making excuses about why you are where you are, one of the things that I've always encouraged people in my team to do is say, hey, we are where we are. What are you thinking about doing differently? How are we going to make the next quarter or the next half year or whatever it is look better? What help do you need from me? Your manager is there to help you do that. So initiate that conversation, take ownership and control, and look to see what you are going to do to improve the outcome.
Great points there. Yeah, great points. Jonathan, is there a fundamental difference here in what we sell, or a fundamental thing to think about in terms of, are we selling consumables? Are we selling instruments? Is that something we need to think about here? Or are the actions the same regardless of what we sell?
I mean, I think the detailed actions will probably always be, they'll probably always be different. But I think in terms of, just in terms of a general approach, I think, there's going to be a huge amount of common ground. I think what is important is, how far behind you are and what impact that's going to have. When you add that to the target, and just saying we are at the half year at the moment, you could be at the end of Q1 or even at the end of Q3 right now, or maybe not even at the end of a quarter, depending on your fiscal year. Yeah. But absolutely, I think it's now recognizing what extra you need to do per month. Jeepers, even per day. So in a consumables business, I'm going to be looking at the frequency. I'm going to be looking at it, weekly. Goodness me. I mean, would I look at it daily? Probably weekly. With an instrumentation-led business, I'm almost certainly going to be looking at the number of units and thinking, right, well, I would normally have had X units to sell by the year end. I've now got X plus, that plus being the gap that had, built up over the previous period. But, there's many ways of looking at it. I love Pru's approach because, I was given a great tool once called Stop, Start, Continue. Right, it's very famous. I'm sure most of our listeners know what it's about. We've been spending a little bit of time here talking about the stop. We stop, we think, we reflect, etc. And Pru's just mentioned it. We need to start doing something different. The danger is that if we think, well, we'll just work a bit harder and we'll get a different result. I think there's a very famous quotation around that somewhere. So it is about doing
it. Einstein, by any chance?
Yes, it was. Yes, and it's absolutely true. We do need to start doing something different. Otherwise we're likely to end up with exactly the same result. And the continue is, well, there will be some things we've done over the last 6 months that have brought us some real success. But what is it we need to start doing? But equally, you can reflect and say, gee, I should stop doing that because that's. I've invested time there. I've had no return. I need to move on from that. And that it is a great time to step back and do that sort of reflecting. As part of planning your way forward. Yeah.
Great points, guys. So let's look at some sort of specific scenarios then. Really. So we've all sold high value capital equipment really for most of our sort of sales career. I think. Yeah, we've done other things, but that's what we've all done pretty much. So I guess one of the first things that came into my mind when I thought about this as a topic, is how do you define your target? Is it bookings, as in orders coming in, or is it invoice sales? I've run sales teams on both, and the pros and cons for both, I think. But I think as a starting point, we need to be clear as to what, how the guys are targeted, because if you're selling high value capital equipment with 6 months lead time, for example, Pru, the year's kind of done, really, in terms of what can you do about it, really? I see you nodding, yeah?
Yeah, it is. I've always been a bit conflicted about whether, as a salesperson, I should worry about whether it's on bookings or invoiced, because the fact is that I have to continually do the same things. How the business chooses to recognize it is almost out of my control. So actually, I shouldn't change my behavior because it's a line in the sand that they draw. They say, okay, well, we're going to recognize that when the order comes in from the customer, or we're going to recognize that when we've shipped and invoiced. But actually, in terms of my monthly activity, what I'm doing, it should be continual. And
absolutely,
if I'm behind plan on bookings, I think, oh, we should go on invoiced. And if I was behind plan on invoiced, I always felt we should switch it to bookings. So I always wanted it in a way that reflected best on me. But you are, if you do have long lead times and you are recognised on invoice, that again, that's no surprise. But keep on doing what's working for you. Up the rate if it's not working, because we can't go backwards. I am where I am today. I'm at this point. I've got this much time to do, and I should continue to do the same thing. I genuinely believe that if you're doing the right activity in enough quantity, to the right market with the right message, you will be successful. And sometimes it just takes a bit of time, but just keep doing it. It's a timing thing, And I go back to kind of the shout out for your manager, really. Your manager is there to provide you with the right sort of support, and your success is their success. You're in this together. So don't hope that they don't call you or whatever. Just stand up and go, well, you can see what I can see. Here's some thoughts I've got. Here's what I want to do. Can you sanity check that with me? So you've got my back, that we're aligned here and that I am doing the right thing.
Sure. So it's the old adage of not going to your boss with problems, it's going to your bosses with alternatives, solutions. Yes, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was going to say, go find your manager before they find you. Absolutely. Okay. Go with solutions.
Love that.
And I think the important thing is to look at that gap that you've got, because you can now calculate exactly what that looks like, and ask a very simple question. How am I going to fill that gap? Again, it depends on what you sell, but I think but as I always say at this point, we're targeted on dollars, for instance. Every dollar counts. Every pound, every euro, whatever currency we're in. Every single dollar counts. So if your target is made up of various revenue streams, let's have a look at all of them. I mean, some may not be significant contributors, but again, they all contribute, and that's the point, isn't it? And and you may not be able to, you may be short on a unit or two if you're selling high value, complex capital equipment, but maybe that has the reagent and consumable pull through. Maybe you can make up the shortfall there. What about service contracts, right? What about
service contracts?
What about training programs, method development programs? There's all sorts of things that we sell too that can help make up the shortfall. But I think, as we said in one of the previous podcasts, one way to close the gap is just stop. Just reduce your discounts. 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% can make a quite significant difference at the end of the day. And it's and it's, there's just so many specific things we can do to close those gaps. But that is a really important point. When you're thinking about closing the gap, think very specifically, okay? And don't do it alone, right? I think it's a great time to brainstorm. I think it's a brilliant time to go and find the people in the business who are on plan or ahead of plan. I was never too proud. If somebody was being successful and more successful than me and I wasn't, well, I'm going to go and annoy them and see what they were doing. And you know what? They were only too happy to help me. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about things that I've done in the past, really, and as I say, we've all been in this situation, I'm sure, as salespeople and as sales managers. But if I have got a situation where a lot of the things that I would want to sell, even if I got the orders in tomorrow, just aren't going to make a difference on year end because of the lead time, and then under Sarbanes-Oxley, the delivery, the installation, the sign-off and all that thing.
Correct.
I would sort of say, well, what can we sell that can ship quicker? So as you say, it's consumables, upgrades, other things you can add on, like auto samplers or extra detectors and things like that are, perhaps the sales cycle for those is shorter because they're perhaps not as high value. And we might have those off the shelf, even demo equipment.
Yeah. Demonstration.
Something I've done in the past.
That's right.
Yeah, sorry, I know you don't like the word demo, Jonathan.
but Steve,
demonstration equipment.
It's a great one. It's a great one. That endless supply of X demonstration equipment. Yes, there may be very good reasons why the company does want to turn that before the end of a financial period. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Get creative.
Good. Yeah, some great thoughts. Yeah, absolutely. What I would suggest we don't do is get so obsessed with the short term that we jeopardize the medium and longer term. I've been run businesses in the past where, let's just say, I've been encouraged by other parts of the organization to bring business forward that I knew I was going to get anyway. And I can see you smiling, Pru. Does this ring true with you? So, ringing up a customer and say, that order you're going to give me in Q3, can I have it in Q1 and here's 10% discount if you do it? To me, that's just bad business. I don't know. Do you agree, guys?
Yeah, I think it's sending the wrong message out to customers.
It is, yeah.
We start to educate them about when to work with us. I mean, I've actually most often been asked to do it when I've been ahead of plan. I think when I've been ahead of plan, they've sort of said, well, could you help make the shortfall up a bit, Pru?
Yes.
Because,
correct.
I'm kind of got a good flow going through my sales funnel. And it's like, is there anything you could pull forward for next quarter? And whilst I am a team player in general,
you are, Pru, absolutely.
it's sort of like, well, actually, if I pull that forward, I'm going to have to give something away, which otherwise I wouldn't. I think it sort of smacks of a bit of desperation in the eyes of the customer. And if you've been very busy building value and all the other things that you do as a great salesperson, you actually undermine it very quickly. And if I've pulled that forward from next quarter, what have I got to fill my gap then?
Yeah.
Because,
it becomes a never-ending process, doesn't it? We're always dragging things forward from, ultimately 2 or 3 years away almost. Yeah. Yeah. Jonathan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a minute, and I'm going to give the other view here.
Okay,
right?
Go for it.
Because, I think we do have to consider a bigger picture, and Pru is right. I've seen the same thing. Well, she's right in my eyes, at least. I've seen the same thing. When I've been ahead, I've normally been asked to find extra. Why? To make up for a shortfall somewhere else in the organization. Now, that may not have been, even in the region I was in. It could have been in a very different part of the world that perhaps was struggling and short. And that happens. That's, I understand that, right? There is as an organization, as a company, we've committed to investors, shareholders, etc., that we will deliver, certain numbers by a certain date. That has to be achieved. So sometimes, yes, we do have to do that. It's not ideal, but on the basis that I know I've done it for other people, what I do know is that other people have done it for me, and as long as it's not commonplace. And I think as long as there is a conversation with your manager about the impact that will have on following quarters or quarter, then that's good. All I would say is, if you are asked to do that, get prospecting immediately, because we know what's going to happen.
Yeah, great point.
That funnel health will quickly decline, and we'll be in difficulty, right? And unfortunately, sometimes people have short memories, so. Yeah, we have to manage that. That's something that's just fired at us. We have to take that on the chin and find a way around that. But we know what to do. It's not as if we're helpless. We know we need to go prospecting. So, yeah.
Yeah, some great points, guys. So, just summarize what we've said so far, really. So, don't blame other things. Look yourself in the mirror. Take ownership of it, really. What are the things that you're going to start doing more of? What are you going to start doing less of? And what you're going to keep on doing the same amount for, really. Look for what things can make the difference in the definable period of time that you've got left, really. What things can you do that would move the needle? What about anything else that we've missed? Is there anything that we've not thought of?
Yes.
What to do? Yeah.
So
Go for it, Jonathan.
Yeah. Just I thought I'd jump in there. Yeah, absolutely. So there's something burning in my mind. I think one of the really important things to do is, I think, to be extra diligent in terms of, are the actions that you decide to take to close that gap and get ahead of plan again, are those actions actually having an impact, on that gap? Now, you might not see that. And when I say an impact, you might not see that in terms of the bookings or revenue immediately. But for instance, maybe, you've developed, you've brought, you've been able to bring more qualified, you're entering more opportunities into your sales funnel. Maybe you have been able to have those more difficult conversations. Maybe you can see that your opportunities are progressing faster through the funnel. So it's just to check that the actions you're taking are having an impact. I mean, I was taught that tool. I think it's continuous improvement tool, wasn't it? Plan, do, check, act. PDCA.
Deeming circle.
It's
is
the
it?
deeming circle. Yes. Yeah. Fantastic.
Say it again, Jonathan. I interrupted you. Say it again.
Yeah, it's plan, do, check, act. Yeah, PDCA. It's the deeming circle. I think it's with one M, isn't it? I think he was some sort of quality specialist. I don't know. So a listener will know. But anyway, great tool just to keep you on track. And I think again, it's important to talk to colleagues as well. Because they may be doing some slightly different things to you. And are the actions they're taking having a more immediate impact than the things you're doing? I often think that in organizations, we don't share success enough. And I've been guilty of that, either as an individual or as a manager, or even as a senior leader sometimes, dare I say it, sorry, but, perhaps not sharing successes fast enough, when we've been in a position like this. So that for me is a really important thing. And I guess the other thing, just to finish off, that was burning a hole in my brain was, you'll almost certainly, it goes back to this doing something differently. Let's just sanity check that plan for the second half or the next 3 quarters or even the final quarter, wherever we are, we should be checking that plan looks, in terms of what you set out to do, it has to look different in some way. You have to be doing something different. Otherwise, the likelihood is you'll end up with the same result again. So, so those were two additional thoughts I had, Steve. Yeah.
No, thanks for that burning idea out of your head, John. Yeah.
I'll have another one in a minute as well.
You're in agreement?
Sorry.
Let me know, because I can't see from here. Is there anything you want to add to that, Pru, or you're nodding?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that the risk is that we have some knee-jerk reaction, and we maybe do something which is not well thought through. We overpromise to other people in the business. Yeah. I'm suddenly going to go from doing 2 hours a week of prospecting to dedicating 2 days to it, and those kind of leaps are rarely going to be successful. Absolutely. One, if you're doing that, you're not doing something else that you should still be doing. And I think if we are behind where we wanted to be, over promising within the business about, look, it's a brand new me and I'm everything completely different, is not feasible, possible.
Or sustainable.
I think it erodes your credibility. So you often look at the differences between people who are doing really well and people who are sort of in the middle. And the differences are relatively subtle, I find, across a team. There are some quite small changes that you can make to suddenly make a big difference. I've literally just come off a call with somebody, with a sales leader, we were talking about discounting and the power of 1%. It's about managing this, just try and get a little bit more for every single deal. It's astonishing how it hits your bottom line. And as you said, Jonathan, gets you just a bit closer to your plan if you do it consistently. 1%'s nothing. Right. It's tiny. It's achievable. So don't say to your boss, hey, I'm gonna start my discounting activity and I'm not gonna give anything away for the next 3 months, because it's probably not
realistic. No. So one last thought from me on this, and before we wrap up, guys, we've been talking up to now, really, if the person listening to this is the salesperson, and of course many people who listen to the show are salespeople, but what if we're the sales manager and we've got people in our team who are behind plan? What are things we need to think about in terms of our management and, dare I say, our leadership around that? Any sort of thoughts on that one before we wrap up?
I always say when I talk about the difference between management and leadership is that if things are going well, you just manage. But if things are not going so well, you just have to lead. Managers manage when things are good. So leadership in terms of how you behave with somebody who's behind plan is around understanding the issue, being inspiring, being listening mode, and being support mode. It's no surprise to that person they're behind. So I would really think about how I'm going to approach this. And they're probably feeling rotten anyway. So I don't need to add to that by admonishing them.
Yeah,
what I do need to help them through is to keep them up, positive, focused, and ready for the next time period. And as a manager, that's my job.
Love that. Your thoughts, Jonathan?
I think it's difficult to add anything really after that.
He says, I want to take the opposite view, Pru.
Not on this
Humiliation in front of the whole team. Yeah.
I think. I think one of the things you have as a sales leader here is just that advantage of being able to step back and see a bigger picture, and I think helping your salespeople analyze their market to look for those segments, those areas, those types of customer, where there is still a significant opportunity, right? It may be true that money is tighter in some places than others, but it's rare that a whole marketplace is down in some way. Now maybe some of our salespeople have just got into this routine, of visiting, dare I say it, the same customers. Maybe they'd be very successful doing that, but now maybe it's time to change. So I think, helping them get outside their comfort zone, being there with them, I think in the field is actually really important, and just making sure that they're analyzing their business correctly, right? And, just bringing another perspective, sharing the best practice from across the organization, the ideas you see other people deploying, and in other territories and other regions, you're much more likely to see it as the sales manager, or the sales leader. So what's happening elsewhere? So that would be, my tip here. Okay.
Great. Love that. Guys, thank you very much for your thoughts on that. If you've enjoyed the show, dear listener, then don't forget to subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast app and tell your friends all about us, of course. We'd also leave you to leave a review. If you listen to us on Apple or Spotify, you can actually, as well as rating reviews on Spotify, I believe you can now leave a written comment as well, which would be lovely. It really does help us in lots of mysterious ways. If you want to contact the show or ask a question, you can email the team at podcast@georgejames-training.com. That's georgejames-training.com. Now, I have to say, the team and I are going to have a short break over the August period. So we're going to be back after the vacation period in September for Series 2 of the Luxury of Choice podcast. And there's going to be a few new things coming to the show. We're going to have some different people on the show. We may even be going live from time to time as well. And I can see the look of terror on Jonathan and Pru's face when I mention that.
Outside comfort zone. Yep.
And if you are listening to the show before the Tuesday, the 23rd of July, then myself and our colleague Jane Green actually will be going live on LinkedIn at 1:00 UK time with a short event on what to do in terms of closing sales, how to get better at closing sales. So we will be back in September. In the meantime, folks, happy selling out there, and we'll talk to you soon.